40 years ago, Dave Genz had an idea that would change the sport of ice fishing: the Fish Trap Flip-Over Portable Ice Shelter. Although the flip-over shelter has evolved to many styles and models, the basic concept remains strikingly similar to Dave's original idea for a fish house that offered protection and mobility.
Mobility is the real key to catching more fish through the ice, and when it's, just came a long ways over the years. Well, they were wooden to start with. We used to take the old sleds that the kids rode down the hills, and we'd staple them to the bottom to make them more slippery so they'd pull through the snow. I was a lot younger then too, of course, and drug this house for many miles across the lake, and going from fisherman to fisherman and sit them down on it, flip it over, show them their hook on their sonar or on my sonar, and then move on to the next guy. That's how it got started, slow. But the original concept was about staying warm, so getting out of the wind. The white houses originally were so you could see your sonar in there a lot better.
Oh, sure.
The new sonar didn't have a very bright light like the new Vexilars do. So, it just, it's been a fun ride going through all this, from, doing stuff in the maintenance shop where I used to work to having real engineers out, designing things, and you can come with a sketch of something and they can build something now that looks just like it. It's just the things that happen along the way.
Years ago, my family and I owned In Fisherman Communications Network. And in the early days of the network, we were always looking at ways to get good editorial. We covered multi-species fishing situations, all kinds of different fishing environments, and you're always looking for good editorial that people will like. And at one of our staff meetings, we got on the subject of ice fishing. And our managing editor at that time, Doug Stange, he did a fair amount of ice fishing. And, he says, this is kind of an untouched market. A lot of people love to ice fish. And, and we all knew that living in Minnesota, ice fishing in the winter, that's what you did. And he said, I think there's an opportunity here to editorialize a little bit more on what is happening in a world of ice fishing. Lots of people love to do it. And I heard about this guy who contacted me. His name is Dave Genz. And he's talking about a thing called a fish trap, and he showed us some pictures. One thing led to the other. I think we ought to do an article on this stuff. I think there's something here. It was good. This looks like a good editorial opportunity for us to touch a segment of our market that a lot of people like here in the upper Midwest region. That was the beginning of the whole thing. Met Dave, got to take a look at the very first fish traps. He shared his story, and his concept behind the fish trap. In those days, you'd get an ice, if you had a fish house, you put it out as soon as you had safe ice, and then you'd be lucky to get it off before the season ended. And you sat it in one place, and that was the deal. And if you were a little bit creative in the old days, you had your kid's sled, you throw a couple things in there and grab a bucket, and you had a couple sticks with a nail in the end of it, and that was the ice fishing world that we live in. And that was the creative people that were stepping outside of the fish house. And Dave had this idea about this fish trap. And the way he laid it out, he says, boy, you put all your stuff in here and you go do this, this, and this. And being a person that is fascinated with fishing, it was easy for me to understand his concept. I said, wow, as I understood it, you're sitting in a fish house, and how many times the old fish house said, okay, I'm fishing here, there's nothing here, I don't see anything. Maybe they're over there, 25 feet away. Well, Dave's idea was mobility, move fast, punch holes, find fish. Simple philosophy. Somebody that fishes, that's the fastest way I could relate to open water fishing, but doing it on the ice.
Then it was Ted Capra that was friends with the in-fisherman guys, so that's how I made contact with the in-fishermen, was through Ted Capper to get our first outing with Doug Stange, and that relationship began then, because they could see Doug Stange was, liked to ice fish, so he's seen the improvements that we were making. He came with a jiffy auger and a bucket with a stick in it, and we had fish traps and locators, and and that was the last time he was at a disadvantage with equipment.
Well, my first fish trap was, I believe it was the Scout. I just wanted something for me to get out there and go fishing with, and something light and easy that would fit in a smaller car at the time. I enjoyed it from the beginning. When I started ice fishing, this invention was already invented, and it kept me warm because I wasn't sure if I was going to like ice fishing or not, but it made it to where I was comfortable. And
when I actually saw Dave, I believe it was up on Gun Lake, and he was in the white fish traps with the wood bottoms. I was amazed at that. As time went by, I actually bumped into Dave a few more times. We actually started talking. I became pretty good friends with him. Where it started was in his garage, and I look around here and where it's gotten to it absolutely amazes me. But the big thing with the fish traps were, the original ones were made out of wood. It had a wood bench in it, and there were 2 square slots that we would put lanterns in, and that's how we heated the house, was with lanterns.
The fish trap, as we called it, because somebody asked me what I was building one time when I was making this, and I said, it looks like a fish trap, and I went, yeah, that's exactly what it is. This is the first 2-man house that we built. This is a prototype of it, or a scale model of it, so we could take it into the dealers and show them how it worked. This was, like I said, a 2-man. One person sat here, fished into the box. The other person sat here, fished out of the front. The 1-person models, you just sat here, fished out in the front. And it's kind of the baby buggy design. That's where the thoughts came from the old baby buggy that had the flip over, or a convertible top, how it just flipped up over the top of you. And the idea was mobility. We need to be more mobile out on the ice. The history of ice fishing, when I grew up, was you chopped a hole and you sat there all day, waited for the sun to go down and the fish to move. And I guess I had ants in my pants when I grew up, so I had to keep moving. And and then I discovered when we were out bluegill fishing, especially, a bunch of people around, and if you caught a few fish in a hole and moved, somebody went and took your hole. So that's why. Well, we came up with the house is one reason. Another reason was when it's windy out, it was nice to get in out of the wind. Being comfortable. In the early days, we just heated them with a Coleman lantern. That's all we had for heaters. But they were small enough. You were sitting up close to the ceiling, so that's where the heat goes in a fish house, is up to the ceiling. And so that Coleman lantern did a nice job of keeping us warm. And then as electronics came about, when the FL8 first came about, the light bulbs weren't very bright. And when you were inside your fish house, you could see the sonar screen much better than if you were outside, you couldn't see it. So that's another reason why we chose to fish in shelters then when the first FL8s came about. And that was definitely another breakthrough, but another reason to have this mobile fish house that you could move, because when you started using electronics and ice fishing, what they told you is that they weren't there, and you can't say they're not biting if there's no fish down there, so we made this things that made it easy for us to move from spot to spot. We started using rod and reels then instead of the hand over hand models, because we knew how deep we were because it showed up on the sonar screen. So just, some of the reasons we did what we did, there's, been quite an evolution from the very first version was similar to this one up to now. There's, 4-person models that are available that are thermal lined. It's, but it's definitely a winter bass boat is what it is. That we're set a bass boat, so he's able to get around from spot to spot quickly. We can do the same thing here. We teamed it up with a snowmobile to make it happen in the wintertime.
I really had the appreciation for his pioneering spirit. He was obsessed with what he did. 24/7, it was the world of ice fishing, and his mind is always going. What can I do to catch more fish faster? And he was so motivated by this. And every year we talk to him, we do another article on the ice fishing phenomenon, and it started to grow and grow and grow. And pretty soon Dave traveled to different states and he experienced different bodies of water, and he fine-tuned things like for bluegills and crappies and perch. And his mind was always going. And what motivated him, like all pioneers, and they're driven, they're obsessed with what they're doing. And the goal is, how can I do things better? How can I take what is already good, what I know, how can I keep moving the needle to get better? In this case, how can I catch more fish faster on the ice? That was really what motivated him.
Yeah, it started out, your friends bought the first 5 that we built, and then we progressed to Bass Pro Shop. Bob Geist was the owner of it then, and then Tomatoes, and then Thorne Brothers was in that area, and we, worked with them, and then I tried going to northern Minnesota, but they were not ready for that yet.
I believe that.
So then I went to Wisconsin, over to, Madison was the first ice show was over there.
Okay.
Went down to Des Moines and did a show, and back in the early days, the first time they seen it, they would look at it, touch it, and feel it, look at it, but they didn't buy it. And then there was always somebody that would buy some. That very first ice show in Madison, Wisconsin, I think you were both there. Anyway, the first year we sold like two fish houses and 2 depth finders, and the second year we were sold out by noon Saturday. And then we started the ice fishing tournaments at Trap Attacks that travel across the country, and we'd go to a new area, and people were kind of, stayed away from us. They were, who are these guys? And then they seen that we were just regular guys that just had a different fishing method, and you'd come back the next year and they were, all into it, wanted to get in the tournaments then, and because they could catch them fish too.
But you actually really started that as an individual event for your buddies. I mean, that's truly where it started.
That's where it really
from.
started. They used to have a Christmas party for the people that helped out, and suddenly I was too busy at Christmas to do that, because that's the big selling season. That's the opening of, Minnesota fishing opener, our big deal. Well, that was the ice fishing opener was first ice.
I remember the phone calls growing up, and the people that read the articles that he wrote after your fishing trip, and people calling from out of town,
New York
and Vermont, and all over the place, that when they called. And that was just really fun, just the excitement and the enthusiasm. They wanted to know all about it. And I so remember that. They were so excited they wanted to learn about this system.
Yeah. I remember going to the Greyhound station to ship the fish traps back in the day by Thorne Brothers.
Yeah, that's how we shipped them, was by Greyhound bus. Was the least expensive way to get one to someplace in New York. They just had to drive to their nearest Greyhound bus. I think the Greyhound bus drivers hated us. They thought they had to have these big boxes with this inside of it, full size, but it was in a box. It did take a while to convince Mom that I have to go fishing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the checks weren't going to come in the mail.
Oh, yes, I'm sure that was hard.
Yeah.
Because she was the one that was home. You were out selling, So I remember that quite well.
She did a lot.
It's crazy to think how far this has come, huh, Dave?
Oh, it's amazing, yeah. Considering them first ones in the garage, the attached garage onto the house, and the wife's sewing them on a little home sewing machine in the breezeway.
So you went from a breezeway in a garage to a 150,000 square foot facility in Rogers, Minnesota, where we can't see around because there's so much product. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. It's it's outright amazing what happened. And it's kind of a dream. You think about that when you start something like this, that it's going to grow. But I guess my dreams probably weren't even this big.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I know when you first started building the fish trap in your garage, you just put together the wood fixturing for a sled, you'd bend the conduit yourself, Patsy would stitch the fabric. Now we got assembly lines knocking these out 100 a day.
That's the way it went. It took time. My girls were involved, Missy and Kathy, and where they would assemble them basically on Saturday so they could go roller skating Saturday night. And even their neighbor friends would come over and help. It was a family and neighborhood that helped put it all together.
I don't even know how old we were when we started building fish houses, but we were to the age that roller skating was the big deal.
I would have been about 12 or 13, so that
Okay.
would have made you 10-ish, 11, somewhere in there, that we started to, I don't think we were involved with like the first 5. I think we were more involved when we started to get to the first 100.
Yeah, when we would the Greyhound bus was involved.
Right.
Yep.
And you on Saturdays would put fish houses together. I'd be gone, and you girls would put
Fight.
the house. I was gone, so I didn't know.
Well, Mom would, at that point, Mom sewed the canvases, and then we'd get them strung and stuff, and then Dad would build all the boxes. So Kathy and I's job actually was to string the canvases, mount the poles to the box, and then staple it all around it, and then try to make the fish trap look really pretty in red ink. Yes.
And one had to sit inside and hold the board, and one had to be on the outside with the ink roller. It was red ink, and it was a roller. That's what I remember. And one had to hold the stencil on, and had to try to roll the ink on.
There's a sample of it out there.
Yeah, we didn't do too bad. Once in a while, we might have overdid it a couple times. So
And
we we customized it. That's what we did.
Yeah.
And then you used half-inch wrenches to put these screws in here that hold the conduits on. Well, I used to buy a lot of half-inch wrenches because they'd leave them in the fish house, and we'd ship them. We actually had customers from, across the country ship wrenches back. This was left inside of the house. You just can't quit your job because somehow you got to pay the bills, and the fish houses weren't making enough money to spend time on the road and pay the bills. And so that's when the Euro larva first came here, and I walked into Veto's Bait and Tackle, and here these colored worms were crawling around on the counter there, in a container, and I went, wow, that's pretty cool. I could catch fish on them, and I got involved with it, and we started another company called Midwest Direct Live Bait, and we shipped maggots, Euro larvae, the colored ones, to 5 states. We had people running around selling that, and that was what allowed me to quit my regular job and to go on the road selling fish houses and the maggots, the Euro larvae. Big bluegills it's always been my passion, and we've heard about Valentine, Nebraska. Pelican Lake up there had these big bluegills in it, and we learned it from Tony Dean he was out of Pierce, South Dakota. And I had to stay here, but a couple of my friends, my nephew Jeff and Troy and Tom,
yeah.
They jumped in a Astro van and they took off and went to Nebraska. And I was busy on Saturday, and I called them Saturday night, and did you catch a pounder? Well, they had 8 of them in the cooler, so I'll be there in the morning. And, and then I couldn't get anybody that wanted to go. And finally, Patsy couldn't take it anymore, and she said, okay, I'll go. And so off we go. This is, it was nice. It wasn't that it was cold or anything. And we got all the way out there. Slept in a wayside rest a couple of times out there. got there, got to the lake, seen these big fish, went out fishing, fished all day, and then I was back out there the next morning yet and getting ready. This is it, we're gonna have to go home, and Patsy goes, I didn't catch one that went over a pound yet, and I didn't come all this way to not catch one that size. So I just went out and drilled holes in it, and she followed behind until she caught one.
One of the experiences that resonated with me of the times that I was with Dave out on the ice was a trip to Gun Lake. That's a lake in Minnesota, central Minnesota. And to me, bluegill fishing at that point, you know, it was, you know, you caught some bluegills to eat, and that was kind of fun. I didn't think about big bluegills and the fine point of catching big bluegills. And by the way, those of you that know Dave, he's got a soft spot in his heart for bluegills. Yeah, he likes to catch everything through the ice, but bluegills are really near and dear to him. And a trip out on Gun Lake, I seen big bluegills, but I'm talking like 10-inch plus bluegills. Yeah, you know, and I mean, you know, the ones that have no face, you know, just rounded like a plate. And I seen what he was doing. He was explaining to me in the fish trap why the fish trap works the way it does, so you could feel the sensitivity, you know, of the bait, whatever you're doing. It was so fine-tuned that everything to him had a purpose. How he positioned the fish trap with the wind to the house, how everything was positioned, how he worked the bait. It explained to me that there was a whole new level of detail that I seen and understood in the ice fishing, from ice fishing to freshwater fishing, like you would see a fine tuning to a walleye fisherman with pulling spinners as an example, or hardcore musky fishermen on rigging suckers for a cold water bite, all the details that went into it. And up until this point, you know, ice fishing to me was a little more simpler. But that experience and seeing the detail that he understood on how to fine-tune everything, and it grew from there. It only got better to what it is today by a long shot. But it resonated to me that, like I've always seen there was always a better way to catch more fish, and details do make all the difference. And he was a detailer to the shape of the bait that he was fishing, the amount of mousies or waxies that would go, how he hooked them on, what he did. That it was all detail. And it all came from time on the water. Yeah, and how many holes did he drill? How many hours was he out on the ice looking through there? How many hours did he fine tune to get that feel just right, to make that jig float, to do what he did? And when you see somebody that is so good at their game, where you have good and then you have great, and those details separated. And when you spend time with Dave, you see the difference between good and great. And again, I really have an appreciation for people like that.
It was a nice luxury of having these fish traps. You know, you're basically fishing out of the elements. That was the key thing. You know, we're always used to sitting outside. You know, we're sitting on a 5-gallon pail, Dacron line, all this stuff. But just the technology, that's how it's advanced in all these years. But the fish house was a key element. You know, it definitely helped us catch more fish by the lightweight, you know, being able to move around, the mobility. That's what's key with all these fish traps, you know, from the one-man house, you know, it started off with the one-man house, now it's up, you can get 2-man, 3, up to 4-man fish houses, you know, it's just crazy how they progress, but it's all about the mobility.
The evolution of the fish trap is a pretty amazing story on how it started, you know. It started in a garage, and they were a little bit heavier back then, you know, plywood and some canvas and some EMT, you know, and they got the job done. And I mean, it was an amazing start to what we have now these days. You know, our fabric got better. We ended up with, you know, some thermal, which kept that water from dripping on you. The tubs got lighter. They started using aluminum poles instead of steel. So everything's quicker and faster and easier to use, and that's why we're seeing more people out there get out there, because they're comfortable and they got something they can handle by themselves. You know, you don't need a whole crew to drop one of these out on the ice and start fishing, or drag them across the ice for that matter. So, you know, that, I mean, that's just come a long way from there to now. You know, we're super light and super quick out on the ice, and it's amazing.
Well, this is the second generation of the two-person house. You know, we kept hearing from people, I want to be able to stand up in my house. You know, my thoughts were, I want a low house because the heat's all up by the ceiling. So if I'm sitting down here and the heat's up here, we kind of wasted that. But we built one anyway, another a two-man house, taller. So basically we got a 4x4 sheet of plywood here. And so when it flips up, it's 4x8. You know, to get the height, we just put this bar in here and raise it up where we fasten the poles on. But back in the early days, you know, there really wasn't any molding going on to speak of yet then. So we had to build them out of wood. And wood was kind of hard to pull. So here are some of the things we did. So we put plastic on the bottom of them. These are just the little kid sleds that are still around today. We put them on the bottom so it slid easier across the snow when we pulled it. But you know, there wasn't, you know, a lot of room in there, and usually both people fished outside. Some people cut holes in the back. That was their option. When they got it, they could do that. But this was the next generation, and now there's, you know, many versions of the two-man houses that are out there. Once we started molding, you know, plastic, and got these plastic sleds, but we didn't have that option back when we were building this house. But the same concept, easy to set up.
Well, Dave, here we are up north, and I want to just take a moment and tell you how thankful I am to you when I bought Clam in '03 that you came along as a true partner and walked right alongside me and did so much, not only for me personally, but for the industry in general, and to really propel the sport. So thank you.
Well, you know, thank you for giving me the opportunity to travel across the country and, you know, promote the sport of ice fishing. You know, I like to say, you know, we took people out of the Stone Age and brought them into the space age of ice
Absolutely.
fishing. And without you, you know, financing the thing, you know, I wouldn't have been able to spend the time. I would have been home trying to get the fish houses built. And so, you know, I certainly, we couldn't have got it going. You know, we made a good team.
We made a very good team, and without your support, it would have never happened. The first revolution in ice fishing was really that fish trap that you designed. Tell us a little bit about that, on how that started.
Well, so, you know, that flip over style, the kind of the original idea came from my uncle looking at a baby buggy and that little thing that flipped up over the baby's head. You know, then he built one to fish walleyes in a larger lake. Well, we could only use one line at the time, so he didn't need a very big house to sit and watch a bobber floating in a hole, but he had that concept. And, you know, as I grew older and just needed to get inside and get out of the wind, and you know, we didn't even have electronics yet then, but we still understood mobility and you know, I said, getting out of the wind, being comfortable. You know, then all of a sudden that XLR flasher came about, and now it really became important.
And it has really advanced the sport. And I think the second revolution after 2003, probably around 2006 or 7, when we came out with the Hub House, it was such a game changer for so many different fishermen, and everybody could come ice fishing.
You could bring your family.
You could bring your family, you could bring your friends. It was so very portable. In fact, when engineering brought us the idea the first time, the president at the time and I both said, who's going to fish out of it? And but I always have a line that I use that's almost cheating, and I would tell engineering, well, let's let the public decide. And so that was another second revolution. And I think the third revolution in ice fishing is coming, and we have some thoughts and ideas, especially you, on what might be coming down the pipe someday. And we're excited for that.
And there's more stuff we're working on all the time.
Yeah, very exciting. Well, to think of it this way, Dave, when you and I first partnered up, Clam had 7 SKUs. We had 7 fish houses. And I think right now today, because of your help and a big engineering staff, and a lot of guys testing product all the time, I think we're up to around 3,500 individual SKUs. So,
Wow, and then our pro staff across the country has access to all these products.
Yeah.
So we get it in the hands of these people all across the country, and they use it and like it because Clam does make the best stuff out there.
Yeah, and we're very proud to be not only partnered with you, but very excited for the 40th anniversary Fish House. I don't know where the time went, but I can tell you every second of it when we've been partners have been nothing less than magical and just fantastic.
Yeah.
Every second. And a real blessing for me and all the folks that work at Clam. You really made a measurable impact on those people's lives. And we're just excited for this, once again, the 40th anniversary. There's a lot of buzz going out there. And I know you had quite a bit of input into that particular shelter. And for me, and I'm sure for you as well, Dave lost his wife this year, so it kind of is a remembrance of Patsy, his wife, who would actually sew up these white tops. And every time I see one, I kind of think of her, just sewing away in the kitchen and making these crazy shelters that I'm sure she said, and you thought, who's ever going to buy these shelters? And it had to be just something that just brings such a good memory back for you.
Yeah, it was. She put a lot of time in to make this all happen, because it was a long sewing process on her home sewing machine that, the needle was up and down about this fast. Yeah. But she got it all done, and I got to go out and it took quite a few years to convince her that I have to go fishing.
Yes. Yeah, and then travel. The year we partnered up, I believe you traveled to every single Gander Mountain to make a sales call or to do an in-store, that were in the ice belt, to do an in-store promotion.
Yeah, did a seminar, and each one of them had a slide presentation that we put together at that time. Yeah. And went all the way to, I think Vermont had the last Gander Mountain, but then I went and did a Cabela's store in Maine.
Oh.
And did have a seminar in Vermont that year too, so pretty interesting to go across the country and shake the hands of many ice fishermen.
Yes. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's been a great partnership.
He truly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is the granddaddy of the ice fishing world. No question about it. And it was so much fun to work with him over those early years and see how he developed this. He had the fish trap ice fishing extravaganzas out on the ice. They had the tournaments. He was going East Coast, West Coast, anywhere in the ice belt, even the fringe ice areas. And wherever he went, he always learned stuff. And every year I would talk to him, and it would just blow my mind on the things that he's seen and imagined, and in his mind of where this segment of our sport could go. And when I look at it today and see what he has done and how many companies he has brought along with him, he created an entire massive segment of our sport that was a nickel-dime industry at one point, just a little piddly thing, go catch a few fish to eat for dinner. Today, it is a big, big business. And all of us that are fortunate enough to love ice fishing and make a living in this business, we owe him a great gratitude. I mean, Dave, I can't say enough for what you did for this business. The guy's a true pioneer, an absolute pioneer. Nobody, period, has done more for this segment of this sport than he has. Nobody. And he pulled a whole lot of companies with him that are in business today, employing a whole lot of people, doing a lot of different things, all because of him.
It just kept growing and growing, and we changed the way they ice fish.
And you mentioned dream big. I can tell you one of my dreams would be to be at that time to see how that evolution persists in the sport of ice fishing. And now, like we were saying, we're walking around here in the Clam building, and you partnered with Clam, obviously, after multiple years of doing the winter fishing systems, and you've had some of these tools at your fingertips. So, I mean, look at, you got a dozen workers here from the Clam family building fish houses and boxing stuff and getting things done for another hardcore ice fishing season. Simply amazing.
Yes, it certainly is to see, this many houses being built and they go all over the ice belt and Canada, and we've shipped into Alaska.
Yep. Every house you see on a sales floor came from this building now. And every house you saw 37, 40 years ago, you built in your garage for them to bring to the sales floor. So, man.
There was, a time as we grew, we had to go to the bank and borrow some money at 18% interest back in them days and add on. And so I had more room to build more and, better sewing facility, storage, and then it came time that I had to grow some more, and that's when I joined up with Clam, and I got to do what I did best, and that was promote the sport, travel across the country and teach people how to fish in a different way.
Compared to today's models, the concept is the same, but the engineering, materials, and features have evolved. Even in the past 10 years, the styles and sizes have gotten better. Extendable poles, thermal fabrics, heavy-duty hubs, new door systems,
where we've come from and where it's going still absolutely blows my mind.
So if you think about ice fishing from when it was then to now, they started out, they were out there with spikes, busting holes through the ice, and that couldn't have been too comfortable. So there probably wasn't that many ice fishermen back in the day. You had to be pretty dang tough to do that. These days you got the fish trap and augers and all this stuff that just made it easier and more comfortable. And being comfortable on the ice is probably one of the most important things, because if you're comfortable out there and you feel comfortable, you're going to fish longer, and if you fish longer, you're going to catch more fish. And that's kind of like, one of the greatest things I like about the fish trap is sitting down and being comfortable and catching a few fish.
Well, the whole growth and popularity of ice fishing, where it is today, is still mind-boggling to me. When we first met and talked about ice fishing, and to see Dave's concepts of mobility and everything to where the sport is today, every single year it just jumps leaps and bounds. It's one of the fastest growing segments of this sport, and still is today. The numbers are staggering, the amount of people that enjoy going out on the ice. And some of the things that I like about it that are kind of fun to me at this point in my life is fishing some of the non-traditional ice fishing experiences that you can have. But what do I mean by non-traditional? How many people are learning to take advantage of the eelpout bite and on purpose, sturgeon through the ice? How about whitefish? You talk about fun. In areas of the Great Lakes and lakes here, people are starting to fish for non-traditional fish. It's not all about walleyes, northern pike on a tip-up, bluegills, crappies, perch. This is the foundation. But that's all part of growing this sport, just making it bigger, better, more enjoyable, safer. All of these things all tie back to a man having a dream, taking a dream and making it happen, and taking a segment of our sport and taking it to an entire new level like nobody else has ever done, period.
With all of the technology we have today, the kids, the wife, grandma, grandpa, it's the ability to get them on the water and be comfortable. One guy can take the XL tubs that are thermal, keep the family in the car, bail out, pull it out, get it all set up, get the holes drilled, get the heater going, where, if they want to, mom and the kids can step out in their street clothes, better to have boots on, and get into a trap that's already warmed up and go. You know, it is that simple. I think the more comfortable you make it for the kids, the better it is. You know, it wasn't that long, my daughter would be, you know, I gotta buy 3 flashers. You know, because the wife's not gonna fish without one, daughter's not, I'm not. She's got her own trap, her own electronics, you know, and it started at a young age. So there again, the trap is, it's one of the main tools that will catapult you into a better fisherman.
You know, 10 years ago, you didn't see that many of them out on the ice. You'd see them scattered here and there, but these days you're seeing a lot of anglers getting out there. And you can go out on a lake and see 200, 300, 400 of these in a day, you know, and people are in those traps and they're having fun catching fish, staying comfortable. You know, and it's just good to see all these people get out there and start fishing more. And the fish trap has done that for a lot of anglers.
Yeah, I mean, we bring a lot of that, like you said, them kids and women even too. You know, a lot of times back in the days, the guys would only go ice fishing. But nowadays, the women can go ice fishing because there's all this different technology, different clothing that fit a woman, that actually make them woman sizes. So that's key, and getting the whole family out there. I'm all about, you know, promoting. You know, me and Shelly spent a lot of time taking people fishing, doing kids events and stuff like that. And you know, Shelly used to ice fish. I got her into the promotional side of the ice fishing as she caught on when, you know, from the first time I took her fishing. She caught her 10-inch bluegill, and it was like, after that, it's game on. And that's what I think one of the key things is getting these kids out there, these women out there, and to enjoy the sport with the quality equipment that's being built now, and it's growing huge.
Just awesome. I mean, how cool of a sight is this?
Yeah, it's, you know, I said it makes my heart pound here right now as we're coming down looking at all this. But you know, you were involved at a very young age that you got started fishing the modern way.
Yep.
Coming to Thorne Brothers back in them days, and coming to my seminars, and and it was truly fun traveling across the country though, and meeting all these different fishermen from all the different locations.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I tell you what, I wasn't there from the beginning, but what I've been involved with in the last 15, 20 years sure gives my heart a beat. Like you said, it makes me feel like I have been. So this is pretty awesome. And to say I get to be with you on the 40th anniversary, you know, when I dreamt big, I'm living it.
Yeah, it's pretty good to be living our dreams.
Absolutely.
You know, being involved in the fishing industry is a pretty fun thing. A lot of really good people, and you know, just a great organization, Clam is, and everybody seems to be having fun that's around here.
Well, I can tell you what I know. I'm super happy you partnered with Clam when you did, because look at this. We get to do what we love.
You bet.
The word right. He's a selfless rock star. You know, he'll give anybody the time of day at any time of day. He's not a snub-nosed guy that won't talk to you. I've never seen him ever cop an attitude. As a person, he's hands down a top-notch, unbelievable, totally giving person. Just Patsy was the same way. They don't come any better. I mean, bottom line is they don't come any better.
So many companies, so many people's lives have been changed, and they enjoy ice fishing. From the rod, reels, lures, a line, the mobility aspect of the sport. You've changed the electronics, the power auger systems that we can move, clothing the impact on soft goods to get out in 25 below zero and not get cold. Dave, you are the one that made this happen. You did this all. And as a pioneer, I've got great respect for you from all of us in this industry. Job well done, my friend.
You know, I've watched it over and over again. He sits there and takes the time to answer questions and talk to people the way they understand it. He's been an awesome mentor for me. He's taught me so many things that, you know, a lot of them, some of them you forget, but a lot of them you remember. One of the special things about Dave is if you ever had a chance to fish with him, you know, when you get back and the day's over, we sit down and discuss what happened that day, why it happened, and how we can make it even more efficient the next day. So when a guy lives, breathes, and eats fishing like Dave does, you know, he's just full of all this useful information. And every time I fish with him, we have a good time catching fish. You know, there's some hard days in there, but majority of the time we're on them. And that's all that knowledge and that he has in that head of his, and passes on to anglers, you know, all over at ice shows, anywhere. I just sit there and watch people look at him and just suck in that information, and that's what's special about that man.
He made us better anglers. That's one of the key things with the stuff that he designed, you know, the blue box, the jigs, you know, I mean, he spent a lot of time, you know, where us average guys that have to work, you know, he's out fishing, he's out testing the stuff, and he's one heck of a guy, you know. I mean, he'll never turn your back on anybody. If somebody's out on the ice, he'll take the time, stop fishing, go out there, go talk to the people, show them how to catch a fish if they're struggling catching a fish. They say we've had many days together, you know, riding in vehicles, ice fishing, and just a class act guy, just a number one guy. So I definitely cherish all the days that we spend together, because who else better to learn from is Dave himself, because he's went through it all. He's at the time, and he did a lot of great things for the ice fishing industry.
Dave is hands down one of my best friends. He's always there when I need him. I mean, as good a friend as any friend could be. Him and Patsy, bless her heart, were instrumental in my world. Dave had the ability and the Gotawana to get up and go. The man loves to catch fish. I mean, he catches his own red tails. He absolutely positively loves to fish. What Dave truly brought was an uncanny honesty of the love of ice fishing. And there again, didn't care who you were. If you were willing to listen, he will tell you the whens, where, hows, and whys of what you want to do to catch more fish.
All of us that have been fortunate enough to make a living in this industry understand how important it is to pass it on to the next generation. And Dave is one of those people that, as a pioneer, and that's what he is, he sees and is so excited. He doesn't keep no secrets. You know, some people, they learn something and they just covet it. They don't want to share it with nobody. Mine, me, mine. That's not Dave. Dave, he can't wait to share this experience with people, people of all ages. And the thrill for him is seeing somebody set the hook, doing something they've never done before, buy a fish trap, get out there, follow his teaching, some of the things he's done, send him a picture, an email, and say thank you. Nothing gives him more satisfaction than knowing that he had a positive impact in somebody's life. And I appreciate that. I understand that. I can relate to that. And again, his passion is something that most people, I don't think, can ever quite comprehend. I call it a passion. You know, in his case, it is an obsession. That's what he does 24/7, and he's still doing it. He's still doing it. You see, he gets excited doing a seminar at an ice show, talking to people, young people. You know, I could still see the adrenaline going, man. This is the rush behind it. This is what he loves to do. And It's just a great individual that has done great things for the sport fishing industry.
Thank you for the passion that you have had for the sport and really carried it through. Not only the joy that you discovered about fishing on the ice and being out of the weather, but being able to take something like that that's quite intangible and pass it on to somebody else to say, hey, I think you'd have fun doing this, give it a shot. And plus teaching all these new anglers back in '03 all the way out to Vermont, like you mentioned. Everybody was used to sitting on a bucket and freezing their tail off, but no one was really used to fishing in a very comfortable setting. And thank you for that. I'm speaking for an awful lot of people who probably never had a chance to thank you, but I can assure you, you spoke to hundreds and thousands of people through the years and really made ice fishing something that is a desirable sport to do instead of something where everybody says, I don't want to do that. And people see a whitefish house. I don't see a whitefish house, you know. I see a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that white house that no one that ever watching this could ever understand what went into that.
How many hours went into them early?
How many hours where you did it for free? You did it for the love of the sport. You did it for the passion of the sport. And I guarantee you, Patsy was rolling her eyes every time you asked her to, you know, sew up another one. But you know, it's just such a wonderful memory for me just looking at, like I said, I don't see what the public's gonna see. They're gonna see a cool fish house that is very unique and is one of the originals, but we see so much more than that.
Yes, you know, sad that Patsy's not here to enjoy the 40th with us, but she's watching, I'm sure.
She's watching from above, that's for darn sure, yeah. So we just love it, and once again, thank you so much for being such a big part of not only Clam, but of my life personally, and of all the sportsmen and women who've touched their lives one at a time. We're thankful, so thank you, Dave.
Well, thank you, and there's sure a lot of people watching that have probably never ice fished, so now you've heard all the good things about it, you know, give it a try sometime, I'm sure you'll like it.
There are some ideas that go down in history as true industry-changing innovations, and the flip-over fish trap shelter is one of them. The portable fish trap has undoubtedly been improved upon by Clam Outdoors and other companies over the past 40 years, but the original idea by Dave Genz is one that has stood the test of time and will be here for years to come.